Now, one of the deadliest jobs on Earth is crab fishing off the Alaskan coast. I only know this from Discovery Channel's 18 seasons of Deadliest Catch.
For nearly 2 decades, Deadliest Catch has taken viewers deep into the freezing chaos of the Bering Sea, turning rugged fishermen into household names. But once the cameras stop rolling, what really happens to these captains and deckhands we've followed through storms, heartbreaks, and victories?
It's really crazy to think that this is like the last 4 pages of his whole fishing careers.
A few have walked away quietly, building new lives on land, while others faced shocking scandals, painful addiction, or tragic ends.
Injuries.
It's really bad.
For all the guys out here, it is a little touchy situation.
From triumphs to devastating losses, here's where the cast members are now, and why their stories remain just as gripping off deck as they ever were on screen. Number 15. Sig Hansen. So what really happened to Sig Hansen after all those years at the helm of the Northwestern on Deadliest Catch? Unlike some of the other captains who faded quietly from the spotlight, Sig never stepped away. He stayed on the show, season after season, with the cameras following him through every storm.
Captain Sig Hansen and crew have been grinding non-stop since pulling their first pot 36 hours ago.
That choice kept him famous, but it also meant he carried on with the same brutal lifestyle that had already taken a toll on his body. In 2016, everything caught up with him. Sig suffered a massive heart attack at home, and for the first time, fans realized that the man who seemed indestructible on deck was not untouchable after all. Doctors told him plainly to retire, but if you know Sig, you know how that conversation ended. He refused. Instead, he fought back, recovered, and made his return to Northwestern the very next year. Viewers cheered him on, but underneath the celebration was a hard truth. Only a year later, in 2018, disaster struck again. This time it happened while cameras were rolling. Sig collapsed from another heart attack right in the middle of filming.
I don't understand why it hurts so much right here.
And the crew rushed to save him. Imagine it. The captain who had kept men alive through the worst seas, now fighting for his own life with the world watching. And then there was the scandal. In 2017, his estranged daughter filed abuse charges. The case was dismissed, but headlines spread quickly, and his name was dragged through painful controversy. Through it all, he turned to family again, bringing his younger daughter Mandy onto the Northwestern and training her as co-captain. That is where he stands today. Sig is still fishing, still risking everything, and every new season feels like a gamble with fate. Fans know one day the sea may finally win, but Sig has never been the kind of man to walk away. Number 14. Edgar Hansen. So you're wondering what Edgar Hansen is up to these days, especially since he's nowhere near the spotlight. Years ago, he was perched on the bow of the Northwestern, steering crab pots through chaos. Then he quietly disappeared from the screen. What changed? Back in 2018, Edgar pled guilty to a charge involving a minor. The fallout was swift. Discovery removed him entirely from Deadliest Catch.
I wanted to run the boat for blue crab. If you don't want me to, tell me.
And that became the end of his on-screen story. It left fans stunned because Edgar always brought quiet strength to the deck, a calm counter to Sig's fire. But get this, he didn't vanish from the boat completely. Many believe he still fishes behind the scenes. Eagle-eyed viewers say they've caught him in shadowed shots or brief blurred frames, like the boat is still his workplace, but just without the spotlight shining on him. It's as though he's there, but erased. Here's the thing. His public life is basically over. Edgar isn't on season 21. He isn't in interviews, events, or anything that brings him into the public eye again. Whether he's still working on the Northwestern when the cameras stop isn't confirmed.
Yeah, it's gonna be a slow go here.
But one thing is clear. Discovery made sure the show doesn't acknowledge him anymore. His story on the show is over, and unless he steps forward, that's exactly how it will stay. Number 13. Jake Anderson. Remember when Jake Anderson first stepped onto the Northwestern as a greenhorn? He was the wide-eyed deckhand under Sig Hansen's command, eager but untested. And fans immediately noticed his mix of grit and vulnerability. Over the years, viewers watched him grow up on deck, battle his insecurities, and push through personal losses. By the time he finally took the wheel of his own boat, the Saga, it felt like a victory years in the making. But his climb to captaincy came with heavy costs.
God!
Down 2 deckhands, Captain Jake Anderson looks on helplessly from the wheelhouse.
Jake's life off camera was brutal. His sister died of complications from pneumonia. His father disappeared and was later found dead in the woods. And Jake himself admitted to struggles with addiction before he turned his life around. Those tragedies shaped him, and fans rallied around his honesty. When he rose to captain, they saw it not just as career advancement, but as redemption. For a while, it seemed Jake had conquered both the sea and his demons. But being a captain brought its own storms. The Saga was notorious for maintenance issues, breakdowns, and money troubles. Jake often fought to keep the boat running, even as cameras rolled, making his role more stressful than triumphant.
So many fun toys to play with.
Financial strain has haunted him, and fans often wonder how much stability he really has behind the wheel. Still, he pressed on, determined not to lose the shot he had earned. As of season 21, Jake is back on screen at the helm, facing one of his toughest trials yet. Early in the season, he abandons ship after a leak nearly cripples his vessel, only to be rescued by Keith Coburn. It is a stark reminder that his journey from greenhorn to captain was never about smooth victories. Fans see a man still chasing redemption, still risking everything, and still fighting to prove he belongs on the Bering Sea. Number 12. Keith Coburn. Keith Coburn has always been one of those captains you either admired for his grit or bristled at for his temper. He took over the Wizard, carved out his own place among the fleet, and became known for his sharp tongue and relentless drive. But in recent years, the real story has not been the crab he caught, but the battles he's fought with his own health. In 2018, Keith's life shifted when doctors discovered he had osteomyelitis, a dangerous bone infection in his spine. The diagnosis forced him to step off the boat for the first time in his career.
Don't make me turn this boat around and go home here, right? Because I'm about ready to do it right now.
You can't.
Fans were shocked to see the tough, commanding captain sidelined by something he couldn't just push through. The treatment meant long stretches away from fishing, and for a while it looked like he might never return to the deck. Add to that his struggles with drinking, which he admitted publicly, and Keith suddenly seemed more fragile than viewers had ever seen. But here's where his story gets interesting. Keith did come back, and he came back still determined to command the Wizard. He has appeared in the season since, though his presence carries the weight of someone who knows every run could be his last. Fans see a man who looks older, worn down, yet unwilling to surrender the life that defined him. His stubbornness to keep going, even in pain, has become a story in itself. As of season 21, Keith is still there, running the Wizard and showing up in the thick of the action.
Hey, don't you get in my face! Do you understand me? Do you understand?
He even played a pivotal role rescuing Jake Anderson and his crew when their vessel failed. proving that despite his battles, he remains a captain others rely on. It's a reminder that Keith Coburn is not gone, not done, and not ready to let the Bering Sea have the final word. Number 11. Wild, Bill Witrosski. If there is one captain who has lived up to his nickname, it's Bill Witrosski. From the moment he brought the Summer Bay into the Deadliest Catch fleet, Bill's fiery temper and blunt style made him impossible to ignore. He had the swagger of a man who had seen it all. And in many ways, he had. But now, years later, his storyline feels less about proving himself and more about whether he can finally slow down. Bill has been open about his health issues, especially nagging hip and back problems that have forced him to take breaks from fishing. Every season, fans ask the same question. Is this the one where Wild Bill finally hangs it up? And every season he shows up again, grumbling about the pain but unwilling to surrender his spot at sea.
With about a 30 average or even a little better on this, these spots aren't going back in the water.
That defiance has become part of his legacy, but so has something else. Mentorship. Over the last few years, Bill has turned his focus to training the next generation. On the Summer Bay, he has guided younger deckhands and given opportunities to new faces, even when his own body seemed ready to quit. Viewers have noticed the shift. He is still volatile, still quick to bark, but there is also a sense of passing down lessons, of preparing others to step in when he finally steps out. As of season 21, Bill continues to appear, though the talk of retirement follows him more than ever.
Captain Wild Bill bets that 110 pods set in a deep trench will fill his quota.
Fans see a man who built a reputation on toughness, now weighing the reality of age and injury against a lifetime of chasing crab. Whether he calls it quits soon or not, Bill's role as both captain and mentor ensures that when he does leave, his presence will be felt long after the Summer Bay sails without him. Number 10. Phil Harris. Phil Harris was not just another captain on Deadliest Catch. He was the beating heart of the Cornelia Marie, the larger-than-life figure whose booming laugh and weathered face made him a fan favorite from the start. He had that rare mix of toughness and warmth, barking orders one moment and sharing quiet wisdom the next. Then, in 2010, tragedy struck in a way that shook the entire fleet and every viewer watching at home. During the filming of Season 6, Phil collapsed after suffering a massive stroke. Cameras captured his struggle, the rushed medical response, and the heartbreaking reality that unfolded in the hospital. For days, fans hoped for recovery, clinging to updates. But on February 9, 2010, Phil Harris passed away at just 53 years old. The grief was not confined to the crew of the Cornelia Marie. It spread through the fleet, the show, and millions of living rooms across America. Viewers had watched him fight storms and haul crab through freezing seas, but this was one battle he could not win. The tribute episodes that followed remain some of the most emotional in Deadliest Catch history. Fellow captains wept openly, and Phil's sons, Josh and Jake, stood on deck carrying not just grief, but the weight of their father's legacy.
My name is Josh Harris.
For you, buddy!
My dad was Captain Phil Harris, a legend on the Bering Sea.
Fans felt like they had lost a family member too, because Phil had let them into his world without pretense. His legacy continues through Josh Harris, who went on to captain the Cornelia Marie himself, determined to honor the name his father built. Even now, more than a decade later, every shot of that blue-hulled vessel feels haunted by the man who once commanded it. Phil Harris may be gone, but the heartbreak of his loss still lingers on the Bering Sea. Number 9. Josh Harris. Fans who have followed Deadliest Catch from the early days were stunned in 2022 when Josh Harris suddenly disappeared from the show. There was no farewell, no explanation from the Cornelia Marie, just silence. Viewers who had watched him grow from Phil Harris's grieving son into the captain who carried his father's boat were left asking the same question. What happened? The answer soon surfaced, and it was darker than anyone expected.
It's really crazy to think that this is like the last 4 pages of his whole fishing career.
Court records from 1998 revealed that Josh had pled guilty as a teenager to sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl. The revelation spread quickly, and Discovery wasted no time cutting ties. Overnight, Josh went from being one of the most familiar faces in the fleet to a figure the network would no longer acknowledge. His exit was sudden, but the damage was lasting. For fans, it felt like a betrayal. The Harris name had symbolized resilience and continuity after Phil's heartbreaking death in 2010. Josh had stepped forward, taken the wheel of the Cornelia Marie, and for more than a decade kept his father's legacy alive on the show. All of that ended the moment those past charges resurfaced. Since then, Josh has not returned to television. The Cornelia Marie, once central to the series, has been absent as well, a constant reminder of what was lost. No new interviews, no updates, just silence. For viewers, the Harris legacy now exists only in memory, overshadowed by a scandal that made sure it would never continue. Number 8. Elliot Nie. So let's talk about Elliot Nie, because you know his name still gets people talking. Remember the saga? He was the young hotshot who seemed like he had everything lined up: the boat, the confidence, the edge. But if you watched closely, you saw it unravel in real time. The arguments on deck, the reckless choices, the crew walking out. Fans weren't just watching crab pots hit the rail, they were watching a man slowly fall apart. By season 11, he was gone, and it wasn't because of the sea. It was because of addiction. Elliot admitted publicly in 2015 that heroin had taken over his life, and that confession stunned everyone. For a captain who wanted to be seen as untouchable, it was as raw as it gets. He checked into rehab, and for the first time it wasn't about crab. It was about survival. And this is where things get complicated. Did he bounce back? Did he disappear? The truth is somewhere in the middle. Since leaving the show, Elliot has kept a low profile. Every so often, he pops up online saying he's still clean, still working, still fishing. Fans scan his posts, some rooting for him, others skeptical. But one thing is clear: he never fully walked away from the sea. Even while focusing on sobriety, he has captained smaller boats and stayed tied to the water. So where is Elliot now? Not on Deadliest Catch, not in the spotlight, but fighting daily to stay sober and rebuild. His story isn't polished, and maybe that's why people can't let it go. Because if he can hold on, maybe there's still a chance for a comeback we didn't see coming. Number 7. Casey Mcmanis. When the Cornelia Marie vanished from Deadliest Catch after Josh Harris's abrupt 2022 exit, fans immediately wondered about Casey Mcmanis. For nearly a decade, he had been right there in the wheelhouse, the calm strategist balancing Josh's impulsive energy. Viewers knew Casey as the steady hand, the one who often kept the boat and crew together when emotions ran high. So what became of him once the cameras stopped following the Cornelia Marie? Unlike many captains who poured everything into the sea, Casey always played the long game. He never built his identity solely on the show, and when Josh's scandal forced the Cornelia Marie off-screen, Casey already had his next moves lined up. Away from television,
well, that's a conversation that Josh and I have had off-camera many times about you can't be their best friend.
He runs a marine repair company and has steadily invested in the behind-the-scenes side of the fishing industry, the essential work that keeps boats running but rarely makes it to TV. That business has given him financial stability and a clear direction even as other captains have struggled. Casey has not walked away from fishing entirely, But his focus has shifted. Instead of chasing the drama of each new crab season on camera, he has leaned into projects that build a future for his family and keep him rooted in the industry on his own terms. Fans who have followed his updates notice something different about him. He is not scrambling, not fading, but quietly thriving. Today, Casey Mcmanis represents a rare story from Deadliest Catch, a captain who used the platform to create opportunities beyond the Bering Sea. While others fight to stay relevant, Casey has already built his future. Number 6. Nick Mlashen. Nick Mlashen wasn't a captain, but fans knew him as one of the toughest deck bosses on Deadliest Catch. He had that sharp wit, that no-nonsense style, and a work ethic that made him stand out. But behind the jokes and the sweat,
Vasily, I've been doing this before you came here from Russia, all right? Don't tell me how to do my job.
Nick was carrying a weight most of us never saw until it was too late. Nick battled addiction for years, and he didn't hide it. In interviews, he spoke about heroin, meth, and drinking, admitting he overdosed multiple times before he ever got clean. He even wrote about it in an article called The Deadliest Disease, where he opened up about how close he had come to losing everything. For a while, it looked like he was turning it around. He went to treatment, came back sober, and fans cheered him on as he rebuilt his life at sea. But addiction is ruthless. In December 2020, Nick was found dead in a Nashville hotel room at just 33 years old. The autopsy confirmed it was an overdose. For fans and fellow crew, it was devastating. Nick had survived the Bering Sea, but the storm inside him was the one he couldn't escape. His legacy now lives on in the conversations he started about addiction, and many viewers still see him as a reminder that even the strongest on deck can be fighting battles no one else sees. Number 5. Jake Harris. Jake Harris, the younger son of Phil Harris, never had an easy path on Deadliest Catch. While his brother Josh stepped into the wheelhouse of the Cornelia Marie, Jake's life quickly spiraled into addiction, arrests, and painful public struggles. Fans remember the heartbreaking scenes after Phil's death in 2010, when Jake's grief seemed to consume him, and it was clear even then that his battles were far from over. The years that followed were dark. Jake was arrested multiple times.
Do not put me in handcuffs. Do not put me in handcuffs. You're in handcuffs.
Including a 2019 incident that led to a felony conviction and a long prison sentence.
City of Everett Police Department official Aaron Snell confirmed to ET 2 suspects have been arrested.
For a while, it looked like his story had closed. Another promising life, swallowed by addiction and poor decisions. But here's where things shifted. After his release, Jake reappeared quietly, not in a dramatic TV comeback, but in a slow, determined push toward rebuilding. Recent updates from family and crew suggest Jake has been working on his recovery and focusing on a more stable life. He has returned to fishing in some capacity, though not as a central face on Deadliest Catch. Instead, he seems to be taking smaller steps, avoiding the spotlight that once magnified his every mistake. Today, Jake Harris is not the troubled young man viewers last saw on screen. He is older, scarred by years of struggle, but actively working to stay sober and rebuild his place at sea. For fans who once feared the worst, his recovery offers a fragile but real hope that he can finally write a new chapter. Number 4. Jonathan Hillstrand. So here's the deal with Jonathan Hillstrand. For years, he and his brother Andy turned the Time Bandit into one of the most entertaining boats on Deadliest Catch. Jonathan had that big laugh, the cowboy swagger, and the kind of wild energy that made him impossible to ignore. Then in 2017, after season 13, he stunned everyone by announcing his retirement.
Unreal. John's retiring. And I just don't know if I could do it right now.
Fans thought that was it. No more Time Bandit. No more Jonathan. He sold off parts of his fishing business, talked about enjoying life on land, and for a while it looked like he was gone for good. But if you know Jonathan, you know he doesn't sit still. Retirement never really fit him. By 2020, he made a surprise comeback in season 16, teaming up with Sig Hansen during a king crab crisis. Viewers went crazy seeing him back in the wheelhouse, even if it was only for a limited run. He slipped right into old habits, cracking jokes one moment and wrestling with the grind the next. Since then, Jonathan has kept a much lower profile. He still fishes occasionally, but has leaned more into life off deck. He's been involved in side projects, including running a small tour business in Alaska and dabbling in community events. Financially, he's comfortable. Decades of fishing and TV money gave him security that many captains never found. Today, Jonathan Hillstrand is technically retired, but never truly out. He pops up when you least expect it, and fans know if the Time Bandit ever roars back for one last run, he won't be far behind. In fact, Season 21 proves exactly that. Jonathan is back on screen, working alongside Sig Hansen as the fleet pushes farther west toward Adak Island. Number 3. Andy Hillstrand. So what happened to Andy Hillstrand after he stepped off the Time Bandit? Unlike his brother Jonathan, Andy meant it when he said he was done. After years of rough seas, endless pressure, and the grind of Deadliest Catch, Andy walked away in 2017 and never really looked back. Fans who expected him to pop up for a surprise cameo have been waiting ever since. But Andy has stayed firmly on land.
To get to where if we want to retire, we can retire, but we got to know that it's the right time.
Instead of chasing crab, Andy shifted into an entirely different world, ranching and small business. He runs a horse ranch in Indiana, where he trains, boards, and cares for horses. It's a quieter life, one that feels a million miles away from the chaos of the Bering Sea, but Andy seems perfectly at home in it. He has also stayed involved in local business projects, turning his experience as a captain into practical management skills on land. Financially, Andy is comfortable. Years on the Time Bandit and the fame from the show gave him stability, and his ranch keeps him busy without the danger of freezing decks or violent storms. Fans sometimes spot him through social media updates or local community mentions, but he avoids the spotlight almost entirely. Today, Andy Hillstrand isn't plotting a comeback or chasing the rush of crab season. He's running his ranch, living a steadier life, and leaving the stage to his brother Jonathan. For viewers, he's one of the few captains who managed to walk away and actually stay away. Number 2. Malon Reyes. Malon Reyes wasn't a captain, but he had the kind of spirit that made viewers root for him every time he hit the deck. As a deckhand on the Seabrook, he pushed through brutal shifts with grit and humor, becoming one of those faces fans instantly recognized. That's why his death in July 2020 hit so hard.
From the hit show The Deadliest Catch, Malon Reyes has sadly passed away, died of a heart attack.
At just 38 years old, Malon suffered a massive heart attack at home in Montana. He never regained consciousness and passed away, surrounded by family, leaving behind his wife and children. For the Deadliest Catch community, the news was devastating. Fellow fishermen shared tributes, and fans poured out messages of shock and grief online. Malon's story wasn't about scandals or fame. It was about a working man who gave everything to the job and left far too early. His legacy lives on in those unforgettable moments hauling crab. What do you think about the cast members? Feel free to share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Want more videos like this? Then subscribe to the channel for more eye-opening stories. Thank you so much for staying with us till the end. See you in the next video. Number 1. Freddy Mogati. Freddy Mogati's exit from Deadliest Catch wasn't a dramatic on-screen goodbye. It was a quiet fade after his time on The Wizard around 2018. Viewers noticed when he didn't return, And that's when stories started surfacing about what was going on behind the scenes. Freddy, once known for his unstoppable energy and no-quit attitude, had hit trouble off the water. In 2020, he was arrested in Alaska after a domestic violence incident, a moment that stunned fans who only knew him as the powerhouse deckhand, full of fire. It was a sharp contrast to the Freddy who shouted encouragement on deck and laughed in the face of storms. So, where is he now? Freddy stepped away from TV life completely. He's kept a low profile since his arrest, and while official updates are scarce, it's clear he's not returning to the Bering Sea spotlight anytime soon. Some reports suggest he's been back in Hawaii.
You can always find a job, you can always make money, but you cannot lose your family.
Closer to family, trying to rebuild out of the public eye. Others say he's been keeping work more local, away from the cameras that once made him a fan favorite. Fans still talk about him, though. Every thread about Deadliest Catch eventually brings up Freddy. His wild dancing on deck, his grit, the way he could flip the mood of the entire crew when exhaustion was breaking everyone down. Even if his story off the show took a rough turn, his impact on the series hasn't been forgotten. Freddy Mogati may not be back on TV, but the image of him pushing through ice and chaos on the Wizard is carved into Deadliest Catch history.